This episode of the Media Leader podcast was edited by our production partner Trisonic. For a full range of audio media buying and creative services, including podcast production, check out trisonic.co.uk.
If I had a partner that kept doing things like this to me as a business partner, I would question the value that I'm getting out of that partner if I was a brand.
Hello and welcome to the Media Leader podcast. I'm Omar Oakes, the UK editor-in-chief of the Media Leader. I also co-founded the name The Media Leader, so I'm technically the founding editor of the Media Leader too, but enough about me. Today's guest, the star of the show, is Elliott Clayton, who is Managing Director International Sales at Epsilon, the data products company that was acquired by Publicis Groupe in 2019. That was actually the second acquisition Clayton had lived through. He had joined what was Conversant in 2010 in various senior commercial roles. The business was acquired by Epsilon in 2016. Elliott, hello. Where does the Media Leader podcast find you today?
I'm in Television Centre. I'm in the heart of Publicis, in the heart of Shepherd's Bush, which is actually sunny outside as well. It's very pleasant.
It is. It's a brilliantly sunny day in London today, and yeah, you're based within the Publicis Media mothership, the old BBC headquarters. So we'll get into what's going on with you and Publicis in a bit, but just to set the scene. I'm sure listeners will know in the advertising world, Epsilon has been quite influential of late. It came with a hefty price tag for Publicis Groupe, $4.4 billion, I think it was. I think it's fair to say if you look at what happened since to the Publicis Groupe share price relative to the other big holding companies, it certainly seems to be justified. Epsilon has expertise in working with first-party data, best known for services related to data management, email marketing, loyalty platforms. Have I done a good enough job describing what Epsilon does? You tell our audience. What do you do? What does Epsilon do?
So I'd say you've done what most people do when they think about Epsilon, which is the first thing you think is, oh, it's a data broker. And actually, the first part of our business, the halo part of our business, is advertising and marketing technology. So it's activation rather than the actual data assets, and it's activation through market-leading ID-driven technology, so globally market-leading technologies. You know, it, like I say, it was a very, very significant acquisition by Publicis, and 4 years in, having seen what's happened, it's easy to think, oh well, that was always going to happen. Well, actually, most of these acquisitions could easily go horrifically wrong. Like, it would be very normal if Publicis' share price had dipped before growing. So what I think we brought to the table and to Publicis, and I think even Publicis might have been a bit surprised, is the ability to activate data at scale. We do have those data assets within the business, but the primary differentiation that we bring is knowing who we're talking to and saying the right thing and measuring whether that actually did something or not at the end of it, which obviously super useful for a large media group.
Yes, and so when the acquisition happened, it gave Publicis Groupe an affiliate marketing network, which is Commission Junction, third-party data marketplace, retail data co-op, which is Abacus, and the bit of the business that you were working in, Conversant, which is an ad tech platform. What's been the real value add, would you say, over that time? We're going to get into Google's decision last week to not deprecate the third-party cookie, but clearly being able to better use first-party data is really, really important for brands. What would you say is the real value add of what Publicis has gained?
So, well, I think what Publicis has now got is real, genuine global differentiation against the other holdcos. So Epsilon is a product business. Our president is a software engineer, and so we build market-leading technology. So all of the things you've just mentioned there, so CDPs, one-to-one communication like email, SMS, clean rooms, DSPs. If you look at a Forrester or an IDC or any of these external consultancies, they'll say our technology is the market leader, and in many cases has been the market leader for sort of 10 to 15 years. So we're bringing that execution layer within an agency group who understands it, and that being able to bring those two parts of the business together and talk to each other and help each other understand how to do marketing well is what I think we've managed to do together. So it's not a one-way street, definitely not. But I think we've been able to add an understanding and additional layers of execution within the group. So before Publicis bought Epsilon, they had the lowest organic growth rate of any of the holdcos. Now they've got the highest organic growth rate, which is one of the things that's helped drive in the share price, and that's creating a lot of value for clients, and they're buying it because it's also highly, highly measurable, the outcomes, and they're seeing the benefits for themselves. So it's creating this very, very competitive position within the market, which you see the outcomes of that wherever we are, really.
And how does it work in practice in terms of, in the last few years, Publicis has had quite a high strike rate when it comes to winning new business? You mentioned the organic growth before, but when it's done well when it comes to winning new business, I mean, how have things changed from your seat in terms of how does Epsilon, how is it integrated into Publicis when it comes to trying to win new business?
Yeah, so I think it's obviously it's changed and developed over the sort of the 4 odd years we've been part of the group. So you hear the narratives and the use cases developing as we develop in different markets. Obviously, the US is far, far more advanced, not just us, everybody, than say the UK or if you go into other markets. So what we can do in different markets is obviously different, same as it is for everybody. What I think is important though is, most holdcos, dare I say, are not very good at building product. Most holdco's product has been built by the holdco. We're now coming into creating sort of the core of what Publicis can actually can deliver to clients. Now, things within that include a very, very stable identity that allows us to message individual people, right? And that drives proper targeting, proper measurement, proper business outcomes. And when you combine that ability with Publicis' buying power and strategic nous and Sapient's digital transformation, if you're a very, very large global business and you're looking at how do I actually secure my future 3, 4, 5 years from now, Publicis has got a unique point of view and can prove, more importantly, that it's done it for other people. And I think that is not the only one, but that's one of the reasons that's allowing the group to win globally.
Yeah. And what's so you're based in the UK. How has life changed for you from a UK perspective? The view that someone like me has from the outside, frankly, is that this has been very good for Publicis in terms of being transformational in the US market. You mentioned a lot of these big multinational advertisers which are based in the US. The US market is used the word advanced in terms of needing to better communicate on a one-to-one basis with US audiences. And even when you think about US advertisers, not even the international ones, you have some pretty big brands over there who spend a lot of media. Many people in the UK would never have heard of them. I certainly wouldn't. So it seems that Publicis has done very well leveraging Epsilon to better cater for that more advanced, as you put it, market. Does that mean in the UK it's been, frankly, less interesting? How would you describe what you've been doing over the last few years since acquisition?
I mean, I wouldn't be worth my salt if that was actually true, that's what we've been doing. So no, if you look at the win rates of Publicis pitches that include Epsilon, they're tens of % higher when we're included in those pitches rather than when we're not. And if you look at the types of business that we're winning, so most recently L'Oreal, or smaller businesses like Signet or Very, like those, all of those at all levels, kind of mid-sized to very large, globally recognizable brands, the story, which is essentially around one view, one vision, one voice, like being able to understand across paid and owned who it is you're talking to and understanding what you should be saying to them. That story resonates wherever it is in the world. Now, it might not be to the same level as the US, but relative to what's available in market, it's still market leading. And that's true not just in the UK, but globally, wherever we are. So I think all markets understand there's a better place to get to. All markets understand that they're on a journey and they need people that can help them do that. And we can prove that we can do it, whether it's, we've been in market with these ID driving tech in the UK for 7-8 years. That's more than most of the technologies that most people use. So, they're built privacy by design. I literally don't know anybody else in market that can say that. And so it's not just that we are, a good partner now for businesses in the UK right now, but in future, we also will be, So I think we've got a very, very strong position. If anything, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So I've got probably more runway than the US maybe, but that's a good thing for me. Maybe not for my competitors.
Yeah. well, broaden it out to whether it's Publicis, Epsilon, or another company in this space. What do you think is the key thing that's going to be transformational for marketers when it comes to using data in the advertising media space going forward?
I think that I cannot wait for the moment when we flip from just getting rid of third-party cookies, poorly targeted audiences supported by poorly measured outcomes that just allow quite a messy market to exist. And that's where we are today. Once businesses start properly doing first-party data, where they own the relationship with the consumer and they're able to drive really meaningful communications with those consumers, I think the net of that is less and better advertising, which is good for the retailers or, whatever brands, whatever categories are using it, but better quality communication. I think that's good for the consumer because you're seeing what's actually valuable to you. And it's supported by this move to the kind of integration of marketing technologies and advertising technologies. Like the advertising tech is starting to work a bit like marketing technology. And I think that's a good thing because brands and consumers, they do, like consumers want to be connected to certain brands. They want to be. So, and I think that's a really good, facilitating that is a good thing, and I think that's where the market's going.
Well, let's talk about Google and its U-turn on deprecating third-party cookies. This happened just a few days ago as we're recording this. How surprised were you that they came out with that decision?
My personal opinion is not very. There's a lot going on for them globally that they're trying to resolve around at the moment, which I think has driven the timing on it slightly. I think that what you've seen is the way it's been managed or how they've positioned their communication on it has not worked very well. They're kind of becoming they get lots getting stuck to them for them. And it's a lot easier to go, actually, we're going to make it a consumer decision, a bit like Apple have said, let's just leave it to the consumers to drive this instead. I think that's a neat way of managing regulation. I think it's inevitable that cookies are going away. I hope they do. And I wish that would speed up, if I'm really honest. But I think all it is, it's just a way that they've managed to do that whilst avoiding some of the flack that they've unfortunately caused themselves in market a little bit with the flip-flopping that they've done. I'm not sure they are going to add certainty to it. So I'm not sure that like, obviously this is what's going to happen next, but that doesn't mean they're not going to keep the same sort of, it's like the Liz Truss decision making, isn't it? It's like this flip-flopping, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Just creates complete and utter chaos for everybody. So I'm not sure that is all of a sudden going to get resolved. I think that it will be a slower burnout rather than this big sudden turn off. But I think the general direction of travel is what the direction of travel is, and I don't think that's going to change. I think most of the businesses that aren't Google that are in the space are they've made their bets, they've made their plans, and I think they would be right to continue to keep doing what they're doing and just assuming that this is coming, but it's going to be a slightly phased result. Basically, I'm not sure it will, but if I had a partner that kept doing things like this to me as a business partner, I would question the value that I'm getting out of that partner if I was a brand. And, I wonder whether people are how they're going to feel about all of this themselves. We'll see what happens.
Good thing that Google's a monopoly. But, is that essentially what you think advertisers should do now, where it feels strange to talk about things slowing down after 4.5, nearly 5 years of kind of waiting for this to happen? Do you think is that your message for advertisers in terms of what they should do now, is carry on as if it is going to happen eventually?
Yeah, I think there's two ways that advertisers can progress, or there's third, which is a blend of the other two. You can either continue passing your data to larger businesses than yours who are basically going to rent your audiences back to you. So you're essentially a tenant farmer on your own business where you're being charged a tax essentially to be able to exist, which I think is one way of doing business, which is what we're seeing at the moment. And you can see, you used the word monopoly. I would never do something like that. You can see the difference in the share prices of some of those businesses, the advertisers versus the businesses that are doing the advertising, right? There's a big discrepancy in their growth. There's a second path, which is that advertisers need to invest to build the technologies, data assets, ways of working so that they own the relationship with their own customer base. And that's where the profit for them sits. There's a third way, which you find a way between those two places at the same time. Now, I think if you're not at least considering the piece where you maintain your own relationship with your consumers, you're in a very, very dangerous position over the next sort of 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah. Of course, where there's been a huge growth in online activity is connected TV. What do you think is going to happen within the connected TV space? We've seen a lot of activity around fast channels, for example, again, showing how different the UK and Europe is to the US, where fast has really come on and it hasn't happened yet over here. We've seen a lot of players, a lot of consolidation, actually, or maybe the beginning of a consolidation trend. What are you seeing from the CTV angle?
So I think that people who are operating in CTV need to be very aware that it's quite a nascent category, and that they need to be thinking about what's happening with their budget. Like I think it's very susceptible to fraud at the moment, that category, and people need to be really, really careful how they're spending, what they're buying, why they're buying what they're buying as well. And then the other part of it, I think that being able to measure, so this idea that you've got an ID that's stable across devices, across households, across people, what's coming is being able to understand a relationship with an individual, spend at an individual level across an entire year, and then an outcome across an entire year. And I think that's what CTV can become that TV never was. So being able to completely understand who you've spoken to, and there's this constant bun fight between like short and long-term marketing, what's performance versus brand. Well, if you've got a stable ID and you understand what you've been saying to one person over a whole year, that kind of goes away. And I think that is where CTV is, when it starts triggering those points, that's when it's going to really start to scale, obviously with scale within the market as well. But I think that's when it's going to show its value over linear.
And what's next for Epsilon? I mean, what's the successful 2024 going to look like for you? And what are your plans going forward?
Total world domination. No,
within Publicis Groupe.
No, so like we do a lot of direct business as well, right? So we're not just working with Publicis globally, but
so explain to the audience, how does that work?
So in the UK, we work directly with a lot of brands and businesses to drive outcomes for them. It might be that they're using MarTech solutions, or that they're using some of our kind of AI-driven media solutions for them. So the contracts sit with Epsilon rather than Publicis Groupe, then Epsilon. And it's worth considering that there is a business there as well. I think it's healthy that exists like that.
And that's still operationally independent.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously we partner extremely closely with Publicis, but I think that operational independence is one of the reasons that the continual investment in products and outcomes is as good as it is. Within 2024, we're going to continue scaling in the way that we are in the UK, but also globally. So you'll see that our sort of scale is exponentially increasing across Europe, LATAM, APAC, Middle East. So that's going to keep happening. The other things that you'll start seeing is us bringing new products to market. So new ways of working for people. So things that support the mid-market. So a European mid-market is very, very different to a US mid-market. So bringing out technologies that will work from that is going to be interesting. You mentioned the data assets. I think we're going to be bringing what may well be the largest transactional data set currently available in the UK to market. We're looking at whether that's possible. I think it might be. And then finally, it's the idea of bringing this one view, one vision, one voice together, like bringing all that technology you talked about, MarTech, AdTech, clean rooms, bringing it all together. So you've got this kind of automated, integrated marketing solution. And I think, our competitors should be worried about that we're doing that we can do that, because when we do start activating like that, it makes us very, very hard to deal with if you're only doing one of those things.
And is the key sell that not only we have those capabilities, but if you're a big advertiser, you're working with lots of different companies, you essentially consolidate those into one relationship going forward.
But potentially, like all of the individual technologies on their own are globally competitive businesses on their own, and loads and loads of our partners just work with one solution. But if you start driving personalization across paid and owned, the impacts of that compound. So instead of getting a 10% lift in performance, you get a 20-30% lift in performance. When you put another activation level channel in, like email, on-site and display, you're now going up again 30-40%. And that's difficult to manage if your technologies have no facility to be integrated. And that's what we can do that I think other people are going to struggle to replicate.
We will see. Elliott Clayton, thank you very much for coming on the Media Leader podcast.
Thanks so much, Omar. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Media Leader podcast. This episode was edited by our production partners, Trisonic. You can find and listen to all our episodes on our website at themedialeader.co.uk or wherever you get your podcasts. But just remember, please do subscribe to be notified when we release our next episode. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm editor Omar Oakes. Our executive producer is Jack Benjamin. See you next time.